The red dust of Iridian Prime stung Kalen's eyes as the transport ship's loading ramp descended with a mechanical groan. Harsh sunlight flooded the cargo hold, temporarily blinding the 30-odd prisoners shackled inside. Kalen squinted against the glare, his face showing the exhaustion of someone who had endured too much in too little time. The newly branded slave mark on his wrist still burned raw and angry, a stark reminder of his current status in the eyes of the Kthar Alliance. "Move, scum!" a guard barked, jabbing an electrified baton at the nearest prisoner. "Welcome to your new home. What's left of your miserable lives, anyway?" Viridian Prime. The name alone inspired dread throughout the known galaxy. A harsh desert mining outpost and warrior training center ruled by the Kthar Alliance, known for its brutal arena where slaves and prisoners fought to the death for entertainment and to maintain order. But for Kalen, this hellish world represented something else entirely: opportunity. His capture hadn't been accidental. The slave brand, the shackles, the degradation, all part of a desperate plan to infiltrate one of the most secure Kthar facilities in the sector. Somewhere within this fortress-like complex lay information about Project Chimera, a forbidden Kthar bioweapon program responsible for decimating his homeworld and killing his family. As they were herded out of the ship into the scorching heat, Kalen kept his head down, his posture deliberately weakened to match the defeated slaves around him. But behind his carefully constructed facade of submission, his eyes calculated, memorized, assessed. The guard rotations, the security protocols, the architectural weaknesses of the facility sprawling before them. Processing first, then quarantine, then assignment, a female voice announced in accented standard. Attempt escape and you die. Disobey orders and you die. Fail to meet production quotas and you die. The source of the voice strode into view, and the guards immediately straightened their postures. Commander Lyra, the infamous overseer of Iridian Prime. Her beauty was as legendary as her cruelty. Ethereal features framed by silver-white hair that contrasted sharply with her midnight blue skin, characteristic of the Kthar elite bloodlines. She wore a fitted combat suit adorned with insignias of her high rank, and carried a ceremonial blade at her hip that was rumored to have tasted the blood of hundreds. Stories of her ambition within the Alliance hierarchy were whispered even in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Her disdain for conquered species, particularly humans, was well documented. Under her command, Viridian Prime had become not just a mining operation, but a symbol of Kthar dominance, with its arena serving as both entertainment center and instrument of control. "The lucky ones among you will mine," she continued, pacing before the line of new arrivals. "The strongest will fight in the arena. The rest will serve in other capacities until your bodies fail, which they inevitably will." Her cold gaze swept over the prisoners with casual contempt. When she reached Kalen, she paused. Something about him must have caught her attention, perhaps the way he stood, marginally straighter than the others despite his apparent exhaustion. "This one," she said, gesturing to Kalen with a gloved hand. "Step forward." Kalen obeyed, keeping his eyes downcast as protocol demanded. He felt exposed, vulnerable. Had his cover already been compromised? Lyra circled him slowly, like a predator assessing potential prey. "What were you before capture? Soldier? Merchant? Criminal? Farmer?" Kalen lied, his voice intentionally hoarse from thirst. "From the outer colonies." Her laughter cut through the hot, dusty air. A farmer? With those reflexes? She had noticed the way he'd slightly adjusted his stance when she'd circled behind him, a trained warrior's instinct he'd failed to completely suppress. Before Kalen could respond, Lyra's hand shot out, gripping his jaw with surprising strength, forcing him to look into her eyes. They were mesmerizing, silver irises ringed with gold, beautiful and terrifying. "You are nothing now," she hissed in the Kthar tongue, a language Kalen understood but wasn't supposed to. "Just another human slave." Then, with deliberate slowness, she spat in his face. The spittle ran down his cheek as gasps and uncomfortable shuffling came from the other prisoners. The guards stiffened, awaiting either an outburst or complete submission from Kalen. He gave him neither. Kalen remained perfectly still, his face expressionless, not even bothering to wipe away the humiliating mark of her contempt. His eyes, previously downcast, now locked with hers in a gaze of glacial intensity. No anger, no fear, no pleading, just a cold, calculating stare that reflected nothing and revealed nothing. For the briefest moment, Lyra's confident expression faltered. Something in his unwavering gaze disturbed her, a stillness that seemed more threatening than any resistance. But she quickly regained her composure, dismissing her momentary discomfort with a scoff. "Take them for processing," she ordered, turning away sharply. "This one goes to arena training. Let's see how long a farmer survives in the pit." As the guards pushed him back into line, Kalen filed away the interaction in his mind. The humiliation would not be forgotten or forgiven, but would serve as additional fuel for his resolve. He would bring down Lyra and everything she represented, but first, he needed to navigate the deadly labyrinth of Viridian Prime's power structure and find Project Chimera. The processing center stank of antiseptic and fear. Prisoners were stripped, decontaminated, cataloged, and assigned identification markers. Kalen observed everything while appearing to notice nothing. The number of guards, the placement of surveillance devices, the security protocols, all valuable intelligence for later. Arena training began the following day. The training area was a stark, open yard surrounded by high walls topped with energy barriers. Various weapons racks lined one wall, containing mostly blunted training versions of the lethal implements used in actual arena combat. "Form up, maggots," bellowed the training overseer, a battle-scarred Kthar veteran named Cross. "Most of you will die in your first match. My job is to make sure you at least provide some entertainment before your miserable ends." Kalen positioned himself in the middle of the group, not at the front to attract attention, not at the back to appear reluctant. He meticulously calibrated his performance during training. Competent enough to survive, skilled enough to advance, but never exceptional enough to draw scrutiny. When paired for combat training, he deliberately made small technical errors while demonstrating just enough proficiency to avoid punishment. When forced to display strength, he showed only what was expected of someone his size, carefully concealing his true capabilities. During his first week, he made tentative connections with other slaves and prisoners. Most were too broken or suspicious to offer much, but a few provided valuable snippets of information. "Don't catch Lyra's eye again," warned Tarak, an aging gladiator from the Centauri systems who had somehow survived 3 seasons in the arena. "She likes to personally oversee the execution of prisoners who interest her." "What do you know about the restricted sectors?" Kalen asked casually during a water break, keeping his voice low. Tarak's eyes widened. "Death wish already? The Eastern Compound is completely off limits. Guards talk sometimes, say there's laboratories deep underground. Anyone sent there never returns." "Laboratories?" Kalen pressed, careful to maintain a casual tone. "For what? Weapons, maybe? Or worse?" Tarak shuddered. "Heard rumors of screaming at night. Unnatural sounds. Some call it the Chimera Complex." Kalen's pulse quickened, but his face remained impassive. "Just rumors, probably. Maybe. But listen, there's something big happening soon. Lyra's planning some special event for the arena. High Command visiting, they say. This could be the opportunity Kalen needed. A disruption in routine, divided attention, higher-ranking officials with access to restricted information. The following days, Kalen carefully manipulated his trajectory in the training hierarchy. He won enough matches to advance, but never dominated. He demonstrated improving skills with certain weapons while appearing to struggle with others. Gradually, he positioned himself as a promising but not exceptional fighter who might make for an interesting arena match. 2 weeks after his arrival, the announcement came. "Attention all fighters." Kra's voice boomed across the training yard. "In 3 days, we host the Crimson Festival with High Command in attendance. Commander Lyra herself will enter the arena to demonstrate her prowess against a chosen opponent." Murmurs rippled through the assembled fighters. Lyra entering the arena was unprecedented, a clear political move to impress her superiors. The selection process begins tomorrow, Kraz continued. Those chosen will have the honor of dying by the commander's hand. That night, in the cramped barracks, Kalen made his move. During a controlled altercation with another prisoner, made to look like a dispute over sleeping space, he deliberately showcased a fighting style that would catch Kraz's attention while appearing spontaneous and untrained. The next day, as expected, Kraz pulled him aside after training. You'll fight in the demonstration matches today. Commander Lyra will observe to select her opponent. Kalen nodded submissively, hiding the surge of satisfaction. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. The demonstration matches were held in a smaller version of the main arena. Lyra watched from an elevated platform, surrounded by junior officers vying for her attention. When Kalen's turn came, he fought with calculated imprecision, showing just enough skill to appear threatening to an average opponent, but vulnerable enough to tempt Lyra's ego. After defeating his opponent with deliberate difficulty, he caught Lyra studying him with narrowed eyes. She remembered him, the slave who had stared back after she'd spat in his face. That evening, the selections were announced. As Kalen had anticipated, Lyra had chosen her own champion to face in the arena, a massive Kthar warrior named Vexkor, renowned for his brutality. And as Kalen had engineered through his carefully calibrated performances, he was selected to fight immediately before the main event, against one of Vexkor's lieutenants. It was close enough. The rest would require timing and opportunity. The day of the Crimson Festival arrived with pageantry and heightened security. The arena, a vast circular pit surrounded by tiered seating for thousands, was decorated with the red and black banners of the Kthar Alliance. High Command representatives occupied the luxury boxes, their ornate armor glinting in the harsh sunlight. Kalen, sequestered in the preparation cells beneath the arena with the other fighters, continued his observations. Guard patterns had indeed changed with the festival. Security was heavier at entrances, but thinner in transition corridors due to personnel being reassigned to protect visiting dignitaries. His match was third on the schedule. His opponent, a Kthar warrior named Draz, was known for quick kills and excessive violence, a crowd favorite. As Kalen was equipped with the minimal armor afforded to slave fighters and a standard short blade, he mentally mapped the coming confrontation while appearing appropriately terrified. When his turn came, the roar of the crowd washed over him as he entered the arena. Thousands of spectators, predominantly Kthar with scattered representatives of allied species, filled the stands, thirsting for blood. In a prominent viewing box sat Lyra, resplendent in ceremonial battle armor, watching with detached interest. Draz entered from the opposite side, brandishing twin curved blades and playing to the crowd's adoration. The Kthar warrior was quick and skilled, deadly to most opponents, but predictable to someone of Kalen's true training. The match began with Draz charging forward, expecting an easy kill. Kalen dodged narrowly, appearing desperate, but managing to land a glancing counterstrike. The crowd roared at the unexpected resistance. For 5 minutes, Kalen maintained his act, fighting well enough to survive, but appearing increasingly exhausted. Draz, growing frustrated at the prolonged match, became more aggressive, creating the opening Kalen needed. With a seemingly lucky strike, Kalen disabled Draz's right arm. The crowd's mood shifted from entertainment to concern as their champion faltered. Kalen pressed his advantage, driving Draz back toward the section of the arena directly beneath Lyra's viewing box. As Draz stumbled, Kalen glanced up, deliberately making eye contact with Lyra. In that split second of connection, he let his mask slip just enough for her to glimpse something beyond the desperate slave fighter, something calculating and dangerous. Lyra sat forward, her expression shifting from boredom to intense focus. Kalen finished the match with a non-lethal but incapacitating strike that left Draz unconscious. The crowd's reaction was mixed, some appreciating the unexpected skill, others disappointed by the lack of a death blow. The arena master approached, expecting Kalen to execute his fallen opponent as tradition demanded. Instead, Kalen dropped his weapon in the dust and turned his back, a shocking act of defiance. Guards immediately swarmed him, beating him into submission before dragging him below. As planned, he was thrown into a holding cell to await punishment for his arena transgression. Hours passed. Kalen, nursing his injuries, listened to the distant roars of the crowd as other matches proceeded. Finally, the door to his cell scraped open. Instead of guards, Lyra herself stood in the doorway, her silver eyes glittering with dangerous curiosity. "You deliberately threw that match," she stated. Not a question, but an accusation. "You're no farmer, not even a common soldier." Kalen remained silent, watching her. She circled him, reminiscent of their first encounter. "The way you moved, your spatial awareness, your restraint." She stopped directly before him. "Who are you really? A spy? Assassin?" When he still didn't respond, she continued, frustration edging into her voice. "Your silence won't save you. I can have you dissected alive to find my answers." "You could." Kalen finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "But then you'd never know why I let your champion live." "Let him live." She laughed incredulously. "You spared him out of weakness." "I spared him because killing him served no purpose," Kalen countered. "Just as killing me would serve no purpose when I might be useful." Her eyes narrowed. "Useful how?" "I've seen how the other commanders look at you," Kalen said carefully. "How they whisper when you pass. They fear your ambition, but anticipate your failure." Something flashed in her eyes. He'd struck a nerve. The political dynamics within Cathar High Command were notoriously vicious. "You know nothing of Cathar politics, slave," she hissed, but there was uncertainty in her tone. "I know enough," Kalen replied. "I know Commander Vexthor covets your position and has allies in High Command. I know your security protocols have vulnerabilities he could exploit. I know the Eastern Compound houses secrets that could destroy careers, or make them." Her hand moved to her weapon. "How could you possibly know about the Eastern Compound?" "I'm a former intelligence operative," Kalen revealed, offering a partial truth. "Specialized in infiltration and information extraction. I was captured intentionally." "To what end?" "Revenge, initially," he answered truthfully. "My family died in a Cathar attack. But I'm practical enough to recognize when circumstances change." She studied him intently. "You're suggesting an arrangement?" "My protection in exchange for your skills." "An exchange of value," Kalen corrected. "Your political rivals are more immediate threats to you than I am. I have skills you can use. You have access I need." "Access to what?" "Information. Specifically about Project Chimera." Her face remained impassive, but a slight tensing of her shoulders told him she recognized the name. "That project is classified beyond my clearance," she said carefully. "Which is why you need leverage against those who control it," Kalen pressed. "High Command keeps you in the dark because they don't trust you. Imagine what you could do with information they don't want revealed." A long silence followed as Lyra calculated her options. Finally, she spoke. "If what you say is true about your skills, prove it. Tell me something only a trained operative would notice." "The guard rotation has a 3-minute overlap at the southwest junction during shift changes," Kalen replied immediately. "Your security chief favors his left side? Old injury, probably. 5 of your officers are skimming resources. I can identify which ones by their movement patterns around storage areas. And you've received at least 3 death threats recently, judging by the increased personal security detail you've been maintaining while pretending nothing has changed." Her eyes widened slightly. "Impressive. But why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't," Kalen said honestly. "Trust my interests instead. They align with yours temporarily." Another long silence followed before Lyra made her decision. "You'll be moved to special quarters tonight. Officially, you're being conditioned for more significant arena matches. Unofficially, we'll discuss terms." She turned to leave, then paused. "If this is a deception, your death will be legendary in its suffering." "Understood," Kalen replied calmly. After she left, he allowed himself a small, grim smile. Phase 2 complete. He was inside the power structure now, one step closer to the heart of Project Chimera and the justice his family deserved. That night, as promised, Kalen was transferred to private quarters. austere but free from the squalor of the slave barracks. A medical droid treated his injuries while security cameras monitored his every move. The following morning, Lyra returned with a proposition. Kalen would serve as her covert security advisor, identifying vulnerabilities in her operation while providing intelligence on her rivals. In exchange, she would grant him limited access to non-restricted areas and gradually increase his clearance as he proved his worth. Project Chimera remains off-limits, she stated firmly. That's non-negotiable. For now, Kalen conceded, knowing that pushing too hard would only raise suspicions. Over the next several days, Kalen provided Lyra with actionable intelligence that proved his value. He identified security weaknesses, exposed a smuggling operation run by one of her officers, and helped foil what appeared to be an assassination attempt, though it had actually been a test of his loyalty that Lyra had arranged. Each success earned him more freedom of movement and more of Lyra's cautious trust. He learned the facility's rhythms, mapped its vulnerabilities, and gathered snippets of information about the Eastern Compound. From conversations overheard and computer terminals briefly accessed, Kalen pieced together that Project Chimera involved genetic experimentation far beyond conventional bioweapons. The project had apparently begun as an effort to enhance Cthar warriors, but had evolved into something darker, possibly involving force genetic hybridization of multiple species, including Cthar subjects deemed genetically expendable. The breakthrough came when Lyra revealed that High Command would be conducting an inspection of the Eastern Compound in 3 days' time. Security protocols would be temporarily altered, creating potential gaps in coverage. They deliberately exclude me from these inspections, she told Kalen bitterly. My own facility, and they treat me like an underling. It's an opportunity, Kalen suggested carefully. With attention focused on the inspection, other areas will have reduced surveillance. What are you proposing? Let me conduct a security assessment of the areas adjacent to the Eastern Compound during the inspection. I could identify vulnerabilities they're overlooking. Lyra considered this. You need clearance codes. Temporary ones would suffice, Kalen assured her. Revocable after the assessment. After deliberation, she agreed, seeing potential advantage in having information about security weaknesses near the restricted zone, information her superiors were withholding. The day of the inspection arrived. High Command representatives in ceremonial armor swept through the facility, accompanied by armed guards and technicians. Lyra was required to attend a formal reception, leaving Kalen to operate with the temporary clearance she had reluctantly provided. Using the diverted attention to his advantage, Kalen navigated through the less guarded sections of the facility. His target was not the Eastern Compound itself. That would be impossible to access directly, but a secondary data terminal in the adjacent administrative sector that might contain information about the project. The terminal required multiple authentication levels, but Kalen had prepared for this. Using a combination of the codes Lyra had provided and hacking techniques he perfected over years of covert operations, he bypassed the initial security layers. As he delved deeper into the classified files, horrific details of Project Chimera emerged. It wasn't simply a bioweapon program as he believed. It was a comprehensive genetic reengineering initiative aimed at creating hybrid warriors with capabilities from multiple species. The process was invariably fatal to the subjects, and thousands had already been sacrificed to the research. Most disturbing were the selection criteria for test subjects. The project specifically targeted genetically inferior Cthar, those with mixed heritage or minor mutations, alongside captured enemy combatants. The underlying ideology was racial purification disguised as military advancement. The familiar sick feeling of vindication washed over Kalen as he found records confirming his suspicions. Chimera prototypes had been deployed against civilian targets, including his homeworld, as field tests. Suddenly, a security alert flashed across the screen. His unauthorized access had triggered a delayed detection system. He quickly downloaded critical files to a concealed data device and prepared to exit, but footsteps in the corridor outside told him security was already responding. Trapped, Kalen looked for alternative escape routes. A ventilation shaft offered the only possibility, but it would be a tight fit. As he removed the grating, the surveillance feed on the terminal caught his attention. It showed Lyra in her private command center, watching his actions via security cameras. Their eyes met through the digital interface. She had known, perhaps not his true purpose, but she had anticipated his attempt to access classified information. Now she faced a choice: sound a full alarm and have him captured, or allow him a chance to escape. After a moment's hesitation, her hand moved to a control panel. Instead of triggering facility-wide alerts, she activated a localized fire suppression system in an adjacent sector, drawing security away from Kalen's position. It wasn't forgiveness or alliance. It was a calculated move born of her own curiosity and political machinations. She wanted to see what he would do with the information, how it might serve her interests. Taking advantage of the diversion, Kalen slipped into the ventilation system and navigated through the labyrinthine ductwork. Emergency protocols for the fire had created enough confusion for him to emerge in a less secure area and blend in with the responding personnel. By the time order was restored, he had returned to his assigned quarters, the stolen data securely hidden. When Lyra eventually confronted him, her expression was unreadable. "You found what you were looking for," she stated. "Part of it," Kalen admitted, seeing no point in denial. "And," she prompted, "Project Chimera isn't what you've been told," he said carefully. "It's not just military research. It's systematic experimentation on your own people, particularly those deemed genetically inferior by high command standards." Something flickered in her eyes, doubt, perhaps, or concern. "Proof." Kalen hesitated, then made a calculated risk. He revealed a small portion of the stolen data, showing her records of Cathar subjects selected for processing based on genetic markers. As she scrolled through the files, her expression hardened. These genetic markers, some are common among frontier colony Cathar. My ancestral line carries several. The project directors consider such markers impurities, Kalen confirmed. Anyone with them is potential experimental material. Lyra's hand clenched into a fist. This would explain why certain officials from frontier backgrounds have disappeared after medical evaluations. A long silence followed as she processed the implications. Finally, she looked up at him with new understanding. "Your homeworld wasn't just a random target, was it? It was a testing ground." Kalen nodded grimly. "Along with 11 other worlds. Millions dead for their field trials." Another pause, heavier than before. "What do you intend to do with this information?" "Originally, expose it. Destroy the project. Kill those responsible," Kalen answered honestly. "Now, I'm not certain. The scale is larger than I anticipated." Lyra paced the room, internal conflict evident in her tightly controlled movements. If this information became public, it would destabilize the entire alliance. Civil war would be inevitable. "Perhaps that's necessary," Kalen suggested. "A system built on such foundations deserves to fall." She shot him a sharp look. "Easy for you to say, outsider. My people, despite their flaws, would suffer most." "Your people are already suffering," Kalen countered. "They just don't know it yet." The tension between them was palpable, mutual distrust warring with reluctant recognition of a common threat. Finally, Lyra made a decision. 3 days from now, the project directors will conduct new trials in the subterranean laboratories. Security will be at its highest, but also its most predictable. She activated a holographic display showing facility schematics. "I can create access for you to this section. From there, you're on your own." Kalen studied the schematics. "Why help me?" "I'm helping myself," she corrected coldly. "This project threatens my position and potentially my life. I want confirmation of what's happening in my own facility. And after I obtain this confirmation," her silver eyes met his, "then we decide whether our interests remain aligned." It wasn't trust, but it was enough. A temporary alliance born of mutual necessity and shared danger. For the next 3 days, they meticulously planned the infiltration while maintaining the pretense of their official relationship. On the appointed day, Kalen prepared himself mentally and physically for what might be a one-way mission. The data he'd already gathered was secured with instructions for its release should he not return, but the most crucial evidence remained in the project's core facility. Lyra provided him with enhanced access credentials and a diversion, a staged security drill in the western quadrant that would draw attention away from his approach vector. She also supplied him with a more advanced weapon than his arena blade, concealed as maintenance equipment. "Remember," she warned as they finalized preparations, "if you're captured, I will disavow all knowledge of your actions. Your death will be immediate and unpleasant." "I'd expect nothing less," Kalen replied with grim humor. The infiltration began smoothly. Using Lyra's credentials and the diversion she'd created, Kalen navigated through progressively more restricted areas of the facility. His combat training proved essential several times when he encountered guards not responding to the drill, but he managed to neutralize them silently without raising alarms. The atmosphere changed as he descended deeper into the facility. The sterile corridors gave way to more specialized containment areas. Strange sounds echoed faintly through the ventilation systems, some recognizably pained, others disturbingly inhuman. Finally, he reached the observation level overlooking the main laboratory complex. Through reinforced viewports, he witnessed the true horror of Project Chimera. The vast chamber below contained dozens of containment units, each housing what could only be described as genetic abominations. Beings twisted by forced hybridization, their bodies struggling to integrate incompatible biological systems. Some appeared primarily Cthar, with disturbing modifications. Others were unrecognizable composites of multiple species. Most shocking were the subjects being prepared for new procedures. Cthar individuals who appeared physically normal but wore the markings of frontier colonies. Exactly as the data had indicated, they were being processed based solely on their genetic heritage. Kalen documented everything with a concealed recording device, fighting to maintain his professional detachment. Despite the atrocities before him, this was worse than anything he had imagined. Not just weapons development, but systematic genetic purification disguised as military research. As he gathered evidence from a research terminal, a security alert suddenly blared throughout the facility. His presence had been detected, though whether through his actions or some predetermined trap wasn't clear. Escape routes quickly became compromised as security teams flooded the lower levels. Kalen fought his way through several checkpoints, using both his combat skills and the facility's architecture to evade capture, but the net was tightening. His communication device activated, Lyra's voice coming through with urgent intensity. "They know someone has breached the laboratory. I've created another diversion, but you need to reach extraction point Delta immediately. Security protocols are escalating beyond my control." Kalen changed course, heading for the designated extraction point while evading pursuing forces. The diversion became apparent as explosion alarms joined the security alerts. Something had detonated in another section of the facility, drawing resources away from the manhunt. When he finally reached extraction point Delta, a service airlock near the facility's waste disposal system, Lyra was waiting, accompanied by two guards who appeared nervous but compliant. "These two are loyal to me, not high command," she explained tersely. "They'll escort you to a maintenance shuttle." Kalen hesitated, suspicious of the unexpected assistance. "Why the additional help?" "Because I've seen the feed from your recording device," she replied, her voice tight with controlled rage. "It was broadcasting to my private terminal. They're not just targeting frontier Cthar, they're specifically targeting genetic markers from my home colony. My family." Understanding dawned. "This is personal now." "It's always been personal," she corrected. "I just didn't know it. The shuttle is programmed for an automated mining colony transfer. From there, you can access independent transport. And you—" a cold smile curved her lips. "I have preparations to make. High Command has underestimated me for the last time." The facility rocked with another explosion, larger than the first. "That wasn't part of my diversion," Lyra said, looking concerned. "We need to move. Now." As they hurried toward the shuttle bay, emergency broadcasts revealed the situation. several experimental subjects from Project Chimera had somehow been released, causing havoc throughout the lower levels. Whether accident or sabotage, the result was chaos. At the shuttle bay, Lyra's guards secured their passage while alarms continued to blare. Before Kalen boarded, Lyra handed him a data crystal. "Command codes for Cthar military channels," she explained. "When you release the evidence, use these to ensure it reaches all Cthar vessels simultaneously. The resulting chaos should prevent any coordinated response against frontier colonies." "You're choosing sides," Kalen observed. "I'm choosing survival," she corrected. "For those of my bloodline, at least." A final explosion, closer this time, rocked the shuttle bay. Through the facility windows, they could see combat in the main compound. Some of the escaped Chimera subjects had reached the upper levels. "You should come with me," Kalen found himself saying, surprising both of them. "You've been complicit in this system, but you're also a victim of it." Lyra's silver eyes hardened. "I'm no one's victim. I have my own path to follow." She stepped back from a shuttle. "Consider a debt-settled human. We will likely be enemies when next we meet." As the shuttle doors closed and the automated launch sequence initiated, Kalen watched Lyra draw her weapons and stride purposefully back into the chaotic facility. Whatever her plans, they would reshape the power dynamics of the Cthar Alliance. The shuttle broke free of Viridian Prime's atmosphere, carrying Kalen and the devastating evidence that would expose Project Chimera to the galaxy. Behind him, the Cthar facility burned, visible even from orbit, the beginning of what would likely become a civil war within the Alliance. He had achieved his primary objective, uncovering the truth about his family's killers and securing the means to bring them to justice. But the mission had evolved into something larger, with implications that would echo across star systems. As the shuttle entered the anonymity of deep space, Kalen prepared the evidence for transmission. Justice for his family would come not through personal vengeance, but through the collapse of the system that had destroyed them. The ancient human saying seemed appropriate. "The truth shall set you free." For the millions oppressed by the Cthar Alliance, that freedom would begin today, sparked by 15 seconds in an arena when a slave had stared back at his tormentor without fear or submission. Sometimes, Kalen reflected as he activated the transmission, the most powerful defiance required no words at all.